For those who do not know, Mesa, we're staying for Manufacturing Enterprise Solution Association. We're a non-profitable association focusing really on bringing people together, supporting you on how to leverage smart manufacturing and how to become a smart manufacturing company. So with that, I would like first to introduce the panelists I have with me today, or to start with myself as an introduction. My name is Uwe Küppers. I'm the chairman, the EMEA chairman for Mesa. I'm working for Calypso as well. With me, I have John Clemens, who is the Mesa American Board incoming chair. Welcome, John. And then beside on that, we have Chris Kammer, who is the Mesa Knowledge Committee chair. Chris is working for Aveva. John is working for Rockwell Automation, just to mention that as well. And then we have Chris, another Chris with us, Chris Mączyński. He is the Mesa Analyst Working Group chair, and he is the vice president of Manufacturing Intelligence. And with us as well is Desmond. Desmond Savage is my vice chair actually in EMEA, and he's an independent manufacturing operation management consultant in the life science, food, and beverage industry. So welcome everyone. First on the panelists. How we will run the session is that we go through a short presentation, and after or within between, we will raise some questions to the panelists to give you more detail and insight of the Mesa model and what is this all about. So when you ask yourself, what is the Mesa model? And if you would go on Google and just search for the Mesa model, you will see a significant result on images and pop-ups and mentioning of the Mesa model. The Mesa model has been there for over 25 years already and has been extended quite significantly and has been used by academic companies, practicals, and been very highly used in the industry for writing URS, user requirement specification, defining as well how software are integrated to each other, and really describing how a manufacturing enterprise works in this environment completely. So therefore, we are really happy to share with you today the new Mesa model, which you can also find on mesa.org. And we have, as you can see on the pictures, we have released several models over the last years, and all have been referenced in the wide variants of work ranging from textbook, proposal request, architecture description, etc., etc. So really, Mesa is a very well-known environment and gives you the capability of connecting to other people, doing a peer-to-peer networking, educating as well, get really educated on all the knowledge we've built up over the years. And we have a very significant knowledge center where Chris Kammer is the Mesa Knowledge Committee chair, working with us on all these activities. So let me talk about a little bit what is the new Mesa model. So when we look to the new Mesa model, it really has released the first artifact of the new Mesa model, which is really a framework for the smart manufacturing. And the intention of the Mesa model is to help manufacturing companies in their process of how to define their current and future landscape of smart manufacturing, focusing really from the beginning of what is the business objective you have, moving then towards what are the different life cycles you want to focus on, what are the cross life cycles you want to focus on before you move to really what is the technology you're thinking of, to really secure your foreseen outcome in this environment. It considers concepts that have been part of the manufacturing forever, but dives deeply into how these concepts are made smart by integrating the related functions, incorporating and advanced technology. And with this, I would like to hand over to Chris Kammer, so that he been able of giving you a detailed insight of the new Mesa model. With that, welcome, Chris.
Thanks, Uwe. I'd like to basically just introduce our concept here initially for the new Mesa model. Our intent here is to provide a framework that can be used to describe a lot of different use cases over the next few years. So these Mesa models tend to have a lifespan of, say 5 to 8 years. And we expect this one to have a lifespan of a decade. It's built from the concept of life cycles, cross life cycle threads, and enabling technologies. The thought is that instead of focusing on the technologies initially, folks would focus on an initial business objective or a set of business objectives, and then utilize the traditional life cycles that we're all used to in manufacturing and production, ranging from product to workforce, as you see here on that first reel. But we all know that these life cycles don't act independently. They are all interacting all the time, and that's why we have the center reel there, which is the cross life cycle threads, and those are ones that are going to utilize enabling technologies on the right in order to make those interactions smart and thus provide a specific outcome, which is in line, hopefully, with the business objectives that we went into this with originally. So this is the new model. This is the graphical representation of it. We're in the process of building up a lot of written content associated with it, and we'll talk about that as we move forward here. So the life cycles that we've represented initially in the model are production, which is essentially the manufacturing or the make portion of the enterprise, and we intentionally called it production instead of manufacturing in order to not exclude the continuous process industries and things like that. So, we called that production instead of manufacturing. Secondly, we have the production asset life cycle, and that is all about the tools and equipment and machines, etc., that are used to do production. And third, we have the product life cycle, which is, those that are familiar with PLM. That's basically what we're talking about there, product life cycle management. And fourth, we have the supply chain life cycle, which is very important today to all of us. As we know, we're all facing some challenges there. And then we have the workforce life cycle, which is also a very challenging area, especially as we have a retiring workforce. Some of it due to just the age of workers, but some of it also due to this mass retirement that we've been witnessing here due partially, I guess, to COVID. Lastly, we have also identified the order to cash life cycle as an important one. And all of these are ones that we are documenting going forward here in a way to try to define how can these things be smart by working together. So if we can go to the next slide, what we're trying to do is make it clear that these life cycles are every enterprise needs to manage these life cycles. They're going to be a little bit different application by application. There's no question about that, and industry by industry. But what we do want to build with the ongoing pieces of our content here is some really detailed descriptions of what these life cycles are and how they interact together. So the second piece of the Mesa model is the concept of cross lifecycle threads, and that really embodies and encompasses what I just described there, the concept that there are cross lifecycle threads that are going to tie all of these life cycles together. So some examples there are quality, compliance, energy, analytics, security, digital twin, and modeling and simulation. All these things are going to tie together multiple life cycles in such a way that they work effectively in what we call a smart way. And then the last piece of that, if we go to the next slide, is really the enabling technologies. Move on to the next slide, if you could. The enabling technologies are the things that really allow us to combine these life cycles together using cross life cycle threads. So these enabling technologies are, some of them, it's interesting, have been in use by the consumer market for many years, but are only more recently getting embraced by industry. So things like IoT, and we've added an extra I at the beginning of that, the Industrial Internet of Things, instead of just the Internet of Things. But also things like big data, artificial intelligence, and machine learning, virtual reality and augmented reality, and on and on. So you'll see in the model that these are all represented and are all being described in not only graphical but written ways. So if we move on to the next slide here, what you'll see is that the graphic is just a beginning of what we want the model to become. And in essence, you know, if you look at the way we've built the graphic, it's actually meant to be dynamic. So the intent is that you'd be able to spin the reels, if you will, and select one or more life cycles and a particular cross life cycle thread, and then one or more enabling technologies, and then write a use case around it that describes how those life cycles are combined using a cross life cycle thread and utilizing one or more enabling technologies. And these use cases are actually, we've got a couple of them written already, but there are many more to come. And we would encourage anybody who has any use cases that they've already implemented or in the process of implementing to step forward and work with us on trying to develop some additional ones and publish them through Mesa. It's a great way to get the word out there about the work that you're doing in the industry. So as noted, this is still a work in progress. We've got a pretty good basis for it right now. We've just released the model and a brief narrative of it in the Mesa website. So if you go to mesa.org, you'll be able to check that out. But at the same time, we've got a lot of additional content that we would like to develop in conjunction with our constituents. So I think that's pretty much it for my pitch, and then we can move on to an example here of what one of these use cases looks like from Chris Machinsky.
Terrific, Chris. Thank you so much. So I'm Chris Machinsky. I am the analytics working group chair, but I've also been participating and leading up some of the life cycle development efforts for the new Mesa smart manufacturing model. And as Chris Kammer pointed out, the model's graphical depiction kind of emphasizes the important elements of Mesa's smart manufacturing concepts, and that is that there are these series of life cycles, many of them, which have pre-existed smart manufacturing. However, there are relationships between those life cycles that have yet to be exploited, and opportunities there to gain efficiencies, to gain scale, to gain a rapid adoption of new techniques and ways of manufacturing. And then, of course, key to this, as we all know, and there's been quite a buzz about it, is that there are a lot of enabling technologies. Being able to marry together life cycles, integrate cross life cycle threads, and then identify where the value is and apply enabling technologies to reap that value. And that's the key to smart manufacturing. One of the life cycles threads that I've built up with a working group here to support the new Mesa model is this product life cycle. So we'll have an example of that as depicted here. Different from production, think about the product as the entity, the thing that you are producing, whether it's an intermediate or a raw material or a finished good gadget that's in the consumer marketplace. Through that life cycle, the product needs to be designed in whatever form or fashion, but there's an engineering element to it. There's a capital investment to it. There's prototyping that is involved in order to refine the technology, refine the product, get consumer input potentially if it's a consumer product. There's scale for manufacturing, ultimately going from, let's say, a pilot lab into a production facility and doing that efficiently and maintaining the highest level of quality. There's ultimate market support for the product. Again, if it's an intermediate like a bulk chemical, a refined chemical or something like that, or even if it's an end user product, there's still a support element to the product life cycle for your end customers who are consuming that product and want to understand how to use that product, apply it properly. And then there's end of life, which has become increasingly important in our various industries. The ability to understand what post-consumer waste is, the ability to disassemble and reuse parts of a product to extend its life cycle, to adapt a product to new uses. All of those could be either end of life or extension of life concepts. So again, one of the things that are driving the product life cycle specifically are the ability to be agile, that is to develop products more quickly, to respond to consumer demand more quickly, the ability to develop customizations of products. I think that one of the bullets in an earlier slide that Chris was showing talked about additive manufacturing as a cross-thread and between the life cycles. So the idea that you could have a product that is developed for a market but could be customizable, or could be used for different purposes by your end customers, by the marketplace, and that you would be able to understand those uses and support them as a manufacturer, and even gain benefit by, okay, if the market wants to use our product in such a way, can we enhance that product and modify it in such a way quickly in order to meet the supply chain where it's at, and enable our end users to even gain greater value from that product. So that of course goes into the multi-purpose concept of being able to modify a product or enhance it, customize it for various use cases as it goes down into the supply chain. I have a product, it has a general purpose, but I need to be able to modify that product to fit 4 or 5 different purposes very late in a late stage of the supply chain, which minimizes the impact of having to have customization at the manufacturing, upstream in manufacturing, but rather it's customizable in the downstream supply chain for those fit for purpose uses. And as I mentioned already, disposal and the ability to maintain sustainability and to be environmentally conscious is key to that life cycle. So these are all influencers or key drivers for optimizing the product life cycle. In the lower part of the slide here, you can see that there is, as Chris mentioned, we have life cycles, but we also want to understand the cross dependency between the product life cycle and other life cycles that converge in a smart manufacturing landscape. So key to that is, of course, the production life cycle. We can talk about the product as an entity, but we have to produce that product and where those different touch points are. You can see in the diagram here, they're not all specifically labeled. There's many touch points. The life cycle is depicted as flowing from design through to end of life. But of course, we have feedback in the life cycle that's understood, that you design and you prototype, you manufacture, then you learn from your customer base and your supply chain, and then you optimize that design. You may optimize that design again to make the product more customizable, or to make its packaging lighter so that it has a financial impact, positive financial impact on your supply chain as volumes go up. There's all sorts of feedbacks there that are obvious, that may not be depicted from the simpler diagram. But in the lower diagram on the right-hand side, it's fairly obvious that there are lots of different feedbacks. And then, of course, those cross life cycle interfaces between the details of the product life cycle and the production life cycle. If you can switch to the next slide, please. So one other thing I'd like to point out as we talk about the specifics of the product life cycle is that we're not the only organization that has identified life cycles as being important, and many different organizations are using similar representations for life cycles. A lot of this work has come out of the standards community, and the IEC and ISO and early work that they did on identifying smart manufacturing and looking for standards convergence. The diagram you're seeing here is actually lifted from a NIST document that was issued comparing different standards and looking at the standards landscape in smart manufacturing. But in that diagram, you can see the familiar life cycle depictions. The product life cycle, which is the green set of arrows heading from top left to lower right, and then the convergence both of the production life cycle, the blue set of arrows, and what's labeled here is a business life cycle, but we refer to this more as a supply chain life cycle. We look at this as the optimization of how that supply chain works from plan ultimately to deliver. And we have a life cycle in this Mesa smart manufacturing model, which also represents this. They converge, interestingly enough, in this diagram, and I think this is important to understand, in the manufacturing operations management space. So there's impact, of course, in the supply chain. There's impact in the product life cycle. There's the production life cycle. They all have touch points, and a lot of the cross life cycle interfaces occur in manufacturing operation management, which, of course, is the heart and soul of what the Mesa organization represents and has represented through the various models that we've depicted through the organization's existence and true to form to this current model. And so with that, let me turn over to a couple of different questions, a Q&A opportunity here.
No, I think that's great, Chris. I really appreciate that. If we could move on to the next slide, that again, Chris I'm sorry.
During we do that, Chris, I just had one additional question to Chris as well. You were mentioning that the life cycles impact the other life cycles. For example, what is the impact to the personal life cycle you see there, Chris?
So, one of the life cycles, and I also led up this working group, interestingly enough, when we were developing the smart manufacturing model. We called it the personnel life cycle. It's now called the workforce life cycle. So we should also, if you go and look, for example, there's a bunch of terrific Q&A that's available on the Mesa website in our blogs. And at that time, during the formation of that work group, we called it the personnel life cycle. It is now known officially in the model as the workforce life cycle. Now, that said, how does the product life cycle delta with and impact and or have touch points with the personnel life cycle? There are many different, if you think about that workforce life cycle, there's of course onboarding and training that has to do with the understanding of how the product is made. There's engineering and design, so having the right folks understand the market. There's market research, so having the right folks in the organization understand your market, your end consumers, those constant feedback loops between the supply chain and the consumers of your product, feeding back into engineering. So being able to build up the right workforce and the right workforce organization for communication between different groups within the organization is critical to enabling the product life cycle. Without it, it doesn't exist. That product life cycle is so dependent upon the need for good communication, good training, good personnel and resources within an organization in order to make sure that information is properly transferred and organized and understood, and the relevance to the organization is understood, so that the product can be, again, customized, re-engineered, ultimately delivered to meet the maximum customer satisfaction. That it's fairly obvious when you think about it, but the people in any organization are the most important resource and the enabler of so much of smart manufacturing. And all the technologies, as we call them, as we refer to them, are enablers. They enable the people. They enable the organization in general in order to be smart.
100% agree, and thanks a lot for that, Chris. Chris Kammer, you wanted to continue. Sorry about that. Why and what and how? So why did Mesa really develop a new model?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to touch on that. And by the way, Chris, very eloquently presented, I think, what our intent is. So thank you for that. Why, what, and how? Essentially, why did Mesa develop a new model? As noted before by Uwe, we've got, if you do a Google search, you'll find just, millions and hundreds of millions of hits because everybody has used it and it's kind of a de facto standard in the industry. But why a new one? Well, new technology is driving new techniques. And as a result, this allows more interaction across the life cycles that we've always known. And that's kind of the theme of what Chris just described, Chris Monchinski just described, and what Uwe's question was about. We want to make sure that we expand our coverage to talk about that. And so that's really the big reason for us developing this new model. And how is it different? Well, it's really all about now turning these business objectives into desired outcomes instead of just talking about the technology. But we're not moving away from the traditional life cycles. We're just talking about how new enabling technology can allow these life cycles to work together better and more efficiently. So the how is, how can I as a practitioner benefit from the Mesa model? One is, you can use it to learn about disciplines that might be related to the ones that you're working on. So kind of expand your reach there. You can also use it as a reference point with your customers and vendors, which is, again, if you do that Google search, you'll see that many people have done that before. It just provides a way to have a common set of terms and definitions of really, what we're talking about as we define business problems and business solutions. But lastly, if you really want to benefit from it, the best thing I can suggest is to get involved. So if you actually are in this space and you'd like to put forth some volunteer time to be a part of Mesa, you can actually drive the industry and hopefully propel your career as well, just by helping us to put some content around the model. We expect that it's, as I said, going to be, a decade-long sort of affair where we're, expanding it and putting meat on the bones, if you will. And we'd love for any of you that are listening to participate in that. So that said, I think I'll mention that we've got a couple of things in progress here right now. We are working on building out the detailed descriptions of the life cycles, the cross life cycle threads, and the enabling technologies. And various groups are working on those independently, and we're trying to harmonize them as best we can, so that we've got a set of papers and other works that will publish against this model that are cohesive. And lastly, we'd like to develop a set of use case illustrations, and this is actually where I think that we can take the model into the next 10 years, as I said, where these use case illustrations can be ongoing, and they can be basically illustrations of how these life cycles can get combined and integrated using enabling technologies, just as we've described, just as Chris described, for example. But let's develop, 20, 30, 40 of them over time. And each one of them can kind of illustrate what you as an individual or as a company are doing to be innovative in this industry. So that's really kind of what we'd like to do going forward here. So lastly, I'll conclude to say that, the new Mesa model is here. It consists of life cycles, cross life cycle threads, and enabling technologies. And the intent is that these are going to be able to turn a business objective or business objectives, we'll say, into business outcomes. So that's my conclusion. And I guess from there, I'll turn it back over to, I believe, John, and take up the panel discussion.
I take it from here before we move into the next area. So, John, just to bring you into the picture there as well. I mean, Mesa has been well known in the past, in the early years as well, on their MES. Now, when we look to the new Mesa model, there's no MES mentioned. Why is that the case, or how do you see that? Can you comment on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Uwe. Yeah, so first of all, you're absolutely right. Back in the day, Mesa started with a MES model, the MES model. Okay, because at the time, MES was kind of a single technology. You could kind of go buy a software package that was MES. But since then, MES has grown exponentially, and so that MES now encompasses many, many different technologies. And so there's a lot of different pieces and parts that go together to make an MES solution. So if you just think of all the technologies that are part of today's MES solution, you're going to have mobile wireless as part of that. You're going to have a track and trace database. You're going to have lots of different applications that do everything from production to quality, to material management, to performance management. It's obviously going to embrace the industrial Internet of Things, the IoT. It's going to have a strong analytics component, probably interface to the shop floor using smart objects, AI components. It'll have edge components, probably have cloud components as well, embrace big data, and probably even have an AR/VR kind of component. So you're talking about a typical MES solution of today encompassing a dozen different technologies. So there's not just a single technology that is MES. So it's all of these technologies that are put together to create an MES solution. So then, well, what is MES? Well, MES is focused on execution. The basic model of planning, execution, and controls still exists. The role of execution, of an execution system, being to execute manufacturing in the four walls of the plant, has not changed. What it does hasn't changed. It does everything in the four walls of the plant to execute manufacturing. But all this technology is new, and what is especially new is that all this technology has been coming together in different ways to create a very sophisticated and very powerful MES solution. So MES today is definitely not your father's MES. It's a whole new world, and it's embracing all the smart manufacturing technology.
Right. Now, fully line and agree on that, which brings me basically to the next question as well. When we look to that, I mean, you just talked about a lot of technology, and I see very often that companies are starting with looking at technology instead of thinking about their business objective as we do in the Mesa model. Why is that the case, and why do you think it's important that the Mesa model goes the other way around?
Yeah, so I guess technology, has always been people kind of look at things that's new, that's cool, that's shiny. And of course, there's a lot of people that are out there trying to sell technology. Okay. So a lot of people kind of get enamored of it, and they think often that technology is kind of the silver bullet. If I just had this technology, I could solve all my problems. Okay. But that's not the case. One of the things that Mesa emphasizes as part of this smart manufacturing journey is to look at the big picture of everything that needs to be done as part of transforming your organization under the auspices of smart manufacturing or digital transformation, if you will. So part of it has got to be about business strategy. You've got to think about, what is the business strategy? What am I doing? And then from business strategy, drive to a manufacturing strategy. So you look at the big picture of the company. The other piece is you've got to streamline, if not eliminate, your processes. And I'm talking about manufacturing processes, business processes, supply chain processes, all the above. Streamline them, eliminate them where you can, make a big impact with your processes. And then thirdly, it's got to be about your people. It's got to be about empowering your teams, giving them the right tools and technologies so that you can transform your workforce from being just, hey, I've got a bunch of manufacturing workers, to I have a bunch of highly skilled, highly trained knowledge workers that have tools and technologies at their fingertips to do the job that I'm expecting them to be able to do. So, because the bottom line, as you said, is it's not about the technology. It's going to be about the outcomes. What can we do for the business? Technology is going to come and go. I mean, the technology we have today, I mean, it's some of the stuff is going to be, is going to be gone in another 5 years, and we're going to have new stuff that's even better. Okay, so technology is going to come and go, but focusing on the business strategy, streamlining your processes, empowering your people, and giving them the right tools and technologies to have some significant impact on the business is what smart manufacturing is really about.
Okay, thank you very much for that, John. So how do you see the Mesa model then different from other smart manufacturing or Industry 4.0 models?
So a lot of models that I've seen that are out there tend to be somewhat academic. There seems to be a lot of models that have come back that are kind of academic. Okay, they just kind of read like some academic paper, and it's just sort of a survey of the world and what's going on. And it's like, I'm not even sure why I'm reading this, because most people are looking at their manufacturing facility, their manufacturing problems right in front of their face, and they're like, I need some help here. I need something that can give me some guidance that can be prescriptive and tell me some things I need to look at and tell me some ways I need to move forward. I don't want somebody trying to sell me a piece of technology. I definitely don't want somebody just kind of say, hey, if you buy our technology, it's going to solve all your problems, because anybody that's got any experience knows that's not the case. So they need some advice. They need somebody that's been there, done that, and they can say, look, here's what you need to do. And that's what the Mesa model is all about. It's about getting people to look beyond the technology, to look at their problems, to think about their problems in different ways, and to find the right solutions for their problem that are focused on the business outcomes, the business results, and just doesn't get lost in the technology. So it's very prescriptive. It provides a lot of good advice for everybody, but it gives you a path forward. It gives you a roadmap. It gives you something concrete that you can go do, and you can make a tangible impact on your company by following the advice, by following the prescriptions that's in the Mesa model. And that, more than anything else, is what makes the Mesa model different from all the other models that are out there.
Hey, John, I'd like to add on to that, if you don't mind. That was very very good response. I guess what I'd like to add is, Mesa has for a long time been regarded as we're not a standards organization, right? So we don't write standards, but for a long time we've been regarded as a good interpreter of standards. So, like you said, we're not when you read a Mesa document, it's not a technical document, but here's how you actually implement that technology. And that's really, I think, what we're about.
Which brings really to the case what you said earlier, Chris, coming up with that use case illustration, explaining clearly how people have experienced, what makes sense, how to move to smart manufacturing, because people are talking about smart manufacturing as a big deal. Can you leverage a little bit on that?
Yeah, absolutely, and you're right. The best way to illustrate that to people is with the use cases, I think. So as all of us have mentioned, the industry is adopting new technology, and in fact, what's really interesting is a lot of the new technology that industry is adopting has already been adopted commercially, by us as individuals, right? But often industry is a little bit behind in picking up that new technology. In the end, the fundamental life cycles that we've identified haven't changed, but new technology, enabling technology, as we've named it, does offer additional opportunities for this type of interaction that Chris Monchinski described between the different life cycles, and therefore providing a ton of opportunity for efficiency. And we really need to go after that here, because we're all challenged, and this is going to offer us a great opportunity to overcome that challenge.
Thanks for that. And I wanted to come back to Chris Monchinski on that one as well. I mean, you are also the analytics working group chair, and which goes straight into becoming even more smarter. And I would like to understand from you what you see as great opportunities, and some of that you already elaborated, by combining the people life cycle and the product life cycle and the production life cycle here. What do you see as the main benefits for becoming even smarter and moving from an open loop to closed loop to an autonomous factory or smart manufacturing side there, Chris?
Yeah, so Chris Kammerer kind of touched on it very quickly in the previous response. He was saying that there is there's a need to be more efficient. So, okay, we've talked about efficiency and efficiency. We've driven efficiency into our manufacturing environments for a long period of time. But what's interesting about when you think about smart manufacturing is that efficiency is not just static. It's not as if the goalpost stays in the same spot and we just keep trying to incrementally reach it. The problem, of course, in today's world is that the goalpost is moving, and it's moving back and forth in a lot of different directions, across the field, mid court, etc. And so the demands from the consumer, our competitors up the ante and they provide a better product. Now we need to do the same thing. We need to do it efficiently, right? The environmental demands, that we need to have products that have a minimal environmental impact, or touch on various sustainability pillars. The ability for us to rapidly engineer changes, all those things, because those goalposts are constantly moving, the ability to integrate information more quickly and to understand the interdependencies and manage those interdependencies between the life cycles, that's the heart and soul of smart manufacturing. And that's where the opportunity is. Good telemetry and data obviously is an important part of that. So that's, a lot of what we work on in the analytics working group specifically. You mentioned, the work that we do in that working group. And the thing about analytics, interestingly enough, is it's not necessarily like a black box or a wizard that just spits out answers to your questions. It's not an all-seeing oracle. Rather, analytics is a foundation and understanding of the problem space that we're trying to solve. And if we're working to solve that problem, but it's laborious, it involves reams or volumes of data and synthesizing lots of different types of data, automating that process so that we can take the labor out of it and get the answers quickly and accurately and act on those answers. Well, that's what analytics is about. And if you think about it that way, analytics is just the next evolution of basically a set of KPIs and metrics. And it's using that across enterprise now. So that's really what smart manufacturing is about. It's the next evolution of all these technologies and bringing them to bear to help the organization.
I think that was a great final statement, Chris. So thank you very much. And with that, I would like to do a call to action for everyone here on the call. Really, as you can see, we're developing a wide variety of supporting material for the new Mesa model. To have access to these new Mesa model and all the supporting material, you need to join Mesa. You can find us on mesa.org. You can write us an email at hq@mesa.org. If you're interested in working a team and sharing new ideas and getting double of that input back for yourself, and get your experience and learn from the others really what has happened, what can be done there. You also been more than welcome to being a sponsor, some of the supporting material at the Mesa team or to the entire Mesa model. So there's sponsorship opportunities available. And we really look forward to you meeting with you, having questions, and looking forward to have you as a Mesa member. So as said, just join us at mesa.org. I would like really to thank John, Chris, Desmond, for participating in the panel discussions here, for presenting what the new Mesa model is. It's exciting time right now. It's the right time to join us. We are there since 1992 already, so we really know what manufacturing is all about. But as Chris Manchinski was saying, we're bringing it right now to the next level. So with that, I would like to thank everyone, wish you a successful and fruitful further discussions on the Hannover Fair, and thank you for participating.